13 of the 48 club sports offered by the university now require students to submit proof of sex assigned at birth.
I know deep down they would probably want to stay with the university.
No way in hell anybody's going to tell my daughters what to do with their bodies.
This state is one of the worst in child education.
We can't take it anymore, seeing those scenes.
Going to Hillel on Friday night, all my family members kept texting me not to go.
There's a huge housing crisis in Austin. Do you have a plan in place to address this issue? Determined to start your day well? We're up bright and early. From the enriching local stories to the weather forecast later in the day. Rain or shine, at Good Morning Longhorns, we got you covered. Comprised of a studious reporting staff going lengths to get that scoop, and a talented technical team to enhance your screen visually. As a fellow Longhorn, your mornings are better with us. So start your day the Vivo way. Good Morning Longhorns, Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central Time on TSTV.
13 of the 48 club sports offered by the university now require students to submit proof of sex assigned at birth.
I know deep down they would probably want to stay with the university.
No way in hell anybody's going to tell my daughters what to do with their bodies.
This state is one of the worst in child education.
We can't take it anymore, seeing those scenes.
Going to Hillel on Friday night, all my family members kept texting me not to go.
There's a huge housing crisis in Austin. Do you have a plan in place to address this issue? Determined to start your day well? We're up bright and early. From the enriching local stories to the weather forecast later in the day. Rain or shine, at Good Morning Longhorns, we got you covered. Comprised of a studious reporting staff going lengths to get that scoop, and a talented technical team to enhance your screen visually. As a fellow Longhorn, your mornings are better with us. So start your day the Vivo way. Good Morning Longhorns, Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central Time on TSTV.
13 of the 48 club sports offered by the university now require students to submit proof of sex assigned at birth.
I know deep down they would probably want to stay with the university.
No way in hell anybody's going to tell my daughters what to do with their bodies.
This state is one of the worst in child education.
We can't take it anymore, seeing those scenes.
Going to Hillel on Friday night, all my family members kept texting me not to go.
There's a huge housing crisis in Austin. Do you have a plan in place to address this issue? Determined to start your day well? We're up bright and early. From the enriching local stories to the weather forecast later in the day. Rain or shine, at Good Morning Longhorns, we got you covered. Comprised of a studious reporting staff going lengths to get that scoop, and a talented technical team to enhance your screen visually. As a fellow Longhorn, your mornings are better with us. So start your day the Vivo way. Good morning, Longhorns. Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central Time on TSTV.
13 of the 48 club sports offered by the university now require students to submit proof of sex assigned at birth.
I know deep down they would probably want to stay with the university.
No way in hell anybody's going to tell my daughters what to do with their bodies.
This state is one of the worst in child education.
We can't take it anymore seeing those scenes.
Going to Hillel on Friday night, all my family members kept texting me not to go.
There's a huge housing crisis in Austin. Do you have a plan in place to address this issue? Determined to start your day well? We're up bright and early. From the enriching local stories to the weather forecast later in the day. Rain or shine, at Good Morning Longhorns, we got you covered. Comprised of a studious reporting staff going lengths to get that scoop, and a talented technical team to enhance your screen visually. As a fellow Longhorn, your mornings are better with us. So start your day the Vivo way. Good morning, Longhorns. Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central Time on TSTV.
13 of the 48 club sports offered by the university now require students to submit proof of sex assigned at birth.
I know deep down they would probably want to stay with the university.
No way in hell anybody's going to tell my daughters what to do with their bodies.
This state is one of the worst in child education.
We can't take it anymore seeing those scenes.
Going to Hillel on Friday night, all my family members kept texting me not to go.
There's a huge housing crisis in Austin. Do you have a plan in place to address this issue? Determined to start your day well? We're up bright and early. From the enriching local stories to the weather forecast later in the day. Rain or shine, at Good Morning Longhorns, we got you covered. Comprised of a studious reporting staff going lengths to get that scoop, and a talented technical team to enhance your screen visually. As a fellow Longhorn, your mornings are better with us. So start your day the Vivo way. Good morning, Longhorns. Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central Time on TSTV.
13 of the 48 club sports offered by the university now require students to submit proof of sex assigned at birth.
I know deep down they would probably want to stay with the university.
No way in hell anybody's going to tell my daughters what to do with their bodies.
This state is one of the worst in child education.
We can't take it anymore seeing those scenes.
Going to Hillel on Friday night, all my family members kept texting me not to go.
There's a huge housing crisis in Austin. Do you have a plan in place to address this issue? Determined to start your day well? We're up bright and early. From the enriching local stories to the weather forecast later in the day. Rain or shine, at Good Morning Longhorns, we got you covered.
Tonight on Tower Talks, the United States and Israel are preparing for a possible retaliatory airstrike by Iranian officials after Israel hit an Iranian consulate in Syria. Last week, President Jay Hartzell announced the closure of the DCCE. More on the changes in campus and student reactions. And finally, food security on campus. We'll sit down with our panel of experts to discuss what student organizations are doing to combat food insecurity around campus. And later tonight, we'll hear from UT's Assistant Director for Basic Needs. All of this coming up on Tower Talks. Good evening and welcome to Tower Talks, the show where we take a closer look at the stories affecting Texans, Austinites, and students right here at UT Austin. I'm Maida Serene, and tonight we have an expert panel lined up for you to talk about food security on campus. But before we get into that, there is a lot going on around the world and right here on campus. The United States and Israel are preparing for a possible retaliatory airstrike from Iran after an Israeli airstrike hit an Iranian consulate in Syria. Israel's airstrike killed senior leader of the Iran Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, according to CBS News and the Pentagon. The United States is unsure of when this airstrike will take place, leaving the Biden administration to announce that the U.S. has no prior notice of the Israeli airstrike. Iranian presidential advisor Mohammad Jamshidi posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, for the United States to not get involved in order to not get hurt. Last week, the university shut down the Division of Campus and Community Engagement, or DCCE, in response to the state's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Law ban. According to the Austin American-Statesman, the university laid off more than 40 individuals who worked at the DCCE, and another 20 in other divisions are also being laid off. The closure comes a week after lawmakers warned Texas higher education officials that failure to comply with SB 17 could result in funding cuts or in legal action. UT Austin President Jay Hartzell released a statement via email last Tuesday informing the UT community about the organizational changes. In response to the DCCE's closure and faculty layoffs, students posted hundreds of sticky notes and flyers around campus with the message, #NotOurTexas. The public demonstration was organized by a movement called #NotOurTexas, and groups of students hung posters on buildings like the Perry Castaneda Library and Gregory Gym, as well as notable landmarks like the Littlefield Fountain and the UT Tower. A February 27th Instagram post by the group reads, quote, "Their Texas is not our Texas. A state without diversity, equity, and inclusion is a discriminatory state of mind, and not a state of mind." Earlier today, students gathered on Speedway for a silent demonstration. The protest was organized by Not Our Texas during the eclipse. And now on to our main topic for the night, food security on campus. A fall 2021 report from the National College Health Assessment found that of 682 students surveyed at UT Austin, 21.6% reported that they have low food security, and 16.1% reported having very low security. These numbers are based on how frequently students reported going hungry, reducing their meal sizes, or running out of food because they couldn't afford to buy food. When we come back, we'll sit down with our expert panel to talk about food security on campus and what various student groups are doing to help. Stay tuned.
Comprised of a studious reporting staff going lengths to get that scoop, and a talented technical team to enhance your screen visually. As a fellow Longhorn, your mornings are better with us. So start your day the Vivo way. Good morning, Longhorns. Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central Time on TSTV.
13 of the 48 club sports offered by the university now require students to submit proof of sex assigned at birth.
I know deep down they would probably want to stay with the university.
No way in hell anybody's going to tell my daughters what to do with their bodies.
This state is one of the worst in child education.
We can't take it anymore seeing those scenes.
Going to Hillel on Friday night, all my family members kept texting me not to go.
There's a huge housing crisis in Austin. Do you have a plan in place to address this issue? Determined to start your day well? We're up bright and early. From the enriching local stories to the weather forecast later in the day. Rain or shine, at Good Morning Longhorns, we got you covered. Comprised of a studious reporting staff going lengths to get that scoop, and a talented technical team to enhance your screen visually. As a fellow Longhorn, your mornings are better with us. So start your day the Vivo way. Good morning, Longhorns. Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central Time on TSTV.
Welcome back to Tower Talks. I'm here with our panel to talk about food security on campus. On the far right, we have Nicholas Basha. Nicholas is a co-student leader at Texas Rising, where he works in political organizing. Next, we have Mayoel Crane, who was in an organized the West Campus Free Fridge with the ATX Free Fridge program. Her role included finding a host for the fridge, raising awareness, and fundraising. And finally, we have Dat Duong. Dat Duong is a co-director of the Student Government Food Security Agency and is also a co-director of the West Campus Collective. Welcome on, everyone. We are so excited to have you joining us tonight. Starting with our first topic, according to 2022 data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Texas is the second worst state for food security. Although this is an issue at UT and in Austin, there are several organizations and initiatives working to combat food insecurity and give meals to people in need. So I'm going to start with a question for all of you guys as representatives of student groups that are working to address food insecurity on campus. Can you all each briefly tell me about the groups or the initiatives that you're a part of and what they do to address food insecurity on campus? So we can start with you, Dat, and then just go down the line.
Of course, yeah, of course. Hi, my name is Dat. I co-direct the Food Security Agency, and I also co-direct the West Campus Collective. And with the West Campus Collective, we are basically a brand new organization, also founded by Catherine Ospina, who's not here today. But yeah, so we are basically, one of the main motivations with West Campus Collective is kind of seeing how West Campus's infrastructure is built and how it's not friendly to low-income students. And you see there's a pattern between, low-income students being further and further being pushed back as West Campus begins to build, or continues to build. And, seeing that problem and also kind of seeing the other sector of like food waste around student organizations, we basically partner up with student organizations, Greek Life, etc., and we take food surplus and we distribute it out to the students in those specific sectors of West Campus that we saw to have a higher population of the low-income students, or from low-income backgrounds. So, yeah, that's what we do for West Campus Collective. And for the Food Security Agency, our predecessors were the Food Insecurity Action Team. And through them, they were basically converted into a student government agency, which is now the Food Security Agency. And we've had the privilege of, a lot of initiatives that's happened this year, but one of our main ones is launching the grocery shuttle in partnership with Parking and Transportation Services. So that's up and running, so that's pretty cool. And then we're also in charge of working on the biannual State of Food Insecurity report, just to kind of combine qualitative and quantitative data, just to kind of see and understand the full scope of what food insecurity looks like here at UT specifically. So yeah, that's just kind of a brief little tip of the iceberg, but yeah, that's me.
I'm Manuel. I do mutual aid work with Street Forum, and I also do a few other distros in Austin. But what I'm here for is I was an organizer for the West Campus Free Fridge. That is one of the 6 fridges from ATX Free Fridge. A free fridge is basically a refrigerator that anybody can take from and anyone can give from 24/7. There's no restriction, there's no sobriety requirement, there's no ID, you don't have to name yourself, you don't have to, there are no restrictions or anything that you have to do before you access the fridge. And basically it's prioritizing a mutual aid model rather than a charity model, relying on that community support, that community network to support itself and support each other without having to rely or depend on one organizing or one financial sponsor or donors, specific donors, or a specific group, or any kind of hierarchical structure. It's completely dependent on the community being there for each other.
I'm Nicholas. I'm co-student leader of Texas Rising. We are sort of a new player in the food insecurity space. We are a political organizing group focused on the issues of young people and organizing around those issues and engaging in political advocacy. This semester, we've kind of taken a 2-pronged approach to food insecurity. We've been doing mutual aid with organizations like Austin, Texas Free Fridge Project, volunteering at their fridges and uplifting the great work that their organization does in providing support to those that are food insecure. We also launched our own food drive, working with our coalition partners to donate food to UT Outpost, which is a great resource here on campus. We were able to donate 50 pounds of food over the course of February. And advocacy side, we are working with City Council members Okadri on starting conversations around bringing affordable grocery to West Campus, given West Campus is a food desert and the lack of vehicle access to grocery stores that students have.
Okay, thank you all for sharing that, and we'll get more into the specifics of what y'all talked about later on in the show. Another question for the whole group: can you guys tell me how you got interested in fighting food insecurity, and if you feel comfortable, if you faced any challenges or friends or family or anything like that? Again, we can start with that and go down the line.
Cool. Yeah. I think food security is interesting because going into college from high school, typically you see that students don't really, or food insecurity is not really a topic until before college, and so when they go into college is when they really see the problem. And for me specifically, I mean, going, as a freshman, and if you were to live in the dorms, and I did, you had like a meal plan, and with that meal plan, you can get food whenever you want, but I think one of the main struggles I saw was when I moved out of the dorms, and that, I guess, university support wasn't there. So when it comes to the topic of food security, the question of where I will find my next meal did come up. And that was also a topic of conversation that not only me, but my friends always had. You know, it's always like a running joke, too, that it's like 9 p.m. and you maybe had a granola bar, or you maybe had one meal, or none at all even. So, and we joke about it, but I mean, those are kind of the conversations that when you reflect on it, it's really like, wait, that shouldn't be the case, you know? And there's just kind of this perpetuation of the broke college student culture, and you know, that shouldn't entail students going hungry, you know. So, yeah, that's really kind of what sparked it. And then in partnering with Catherine Ospina for West Campus Collective is when I was really like, okay, yeah. She enlightened me on, you know, everything with West Campus Collective and the research. And then I was like, yeah, there's really a problem. So, yeah, that's how I kind of got into it.
My whole experience with mutual aid as an idea, it's something that I've really been interested in, and that's honestly a pretty small word for it. It's something that I really have always tried to like implement in my life. There's a big tendency to not ask for help, not reach out, and just a lack of community, I feel, like in a lot of our culture, where it's really difficult to just say, like, I need help, I need support, these are things that I need. So I really try to offer support whenever I can, offer access whenever I can, and in turn getting comfortable with like asking for help with those things. And I think mutual aid, obviously, it's something that goes beyond just food security, and I think that's where it started for me, just as like a life practice, where it's we should be able to rely on each other and depend on each other. That's what's sustainable, that's what's going to sustain us as a collective, as a community, forever, you know? It's like we need to be able to help each other whenever it's tough. And yeah, I mean, like exactly what you're saying, there is this tendency to just kind of label it as like this like broke college student lifestyle, and it's like, that's not normal. Like, it is not normal for a whole demographic of people to be struggling to find food. It's not normal. I know my dad specifically told me once when I was moving to college, he's like, college is interesting because it's the only time in your life where it's going to be okay to be poor, you know? And it's like, it's an interesting sentiment, and it's also, you know, it shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't be so normalized in just like our experiences, and like exactly what you're saying, like it's 9 p.m. and it's like, oh, I've only had a granola bar, like people joining orgs because they're offering free food during their meetings, you know. The like Cove app, there's a free food tab that like people will show up to things that they like have zero interest in because they're doing pizza. Like it's something where it's, you know, and I've had a lot of experiences with that, like the whole, that's why I really love the grocery shuttle thing, because for me, I can't drive, so that's always been like a big barrier. It's like, if my friends can take me, and then at that point, it's like, because I'm only going to the store, I can only manage to go to the store like once a month, it's way too expensive. It's like, I can't afford to drop like a month's worth of groceries at one time. So yeah, very much.
Yeah. So, so as an organization, as Texas Rising, when we were looking at kind of a semester project to take on this semester, and we hope to carry this forward into further semesters, but when we were looking at what issue do we really want to focus on, and what really is affecting our student population the most, and through our research on like the health survey that was conducted, where almost 37% of students face some form of food insecurity, and then you just look at just the general geography of Austin and how grocery stores are not close by to West Campus, and yet yet a lot of students don't have cars, so they're either relying on the bus or a friend with a car, or to get their groceries. And also recognizing that students have busy lives between students that we work jobs, we have classes, we have our extracurricular activities, and then we have to do homework well on top of that. And when you recognize that our busy lives and not having that convenient access to grocery is a real impediment and a big cause of food insecurity. So when working with my other team members at Texas Rising, we decided this is something we wanted, this is a new issue area that we wanted to get involved in, just because it hits so close to home with so many of our students, including many of our own members who face food insecurity.
Thank you all for those answers. We're going to get into our first main topic of tonight now, defining food insecurity and what it looks like. So I actually want to come back to you first, Nicholas, because you mentioned that West Campus is a food desert, and you talked a little bit about that in this second answer. Can you explain that to me, like what constitutes West Campus as a food desert?
So what constitutes West Campus as a food desert is, for a geographic area to be classified as a food desert, it must be, has to have low income and low access, which means there needs to be a lack of access to specifically fresh food, so like vegetables and meats, within it's within a half mile to a mile, especially in areas where there's a lack of vehicle access. That boundary extends out further, or that boundary kind of closes in more to like a half mile for that to be considered a food desert. In the West Campus area on the U.S. Department of Agriculture maps is considered a low income and low access area by vehicle.
Okay, Dad, I want to come to you now. Can you define for me what is food insecurity, and is this something we're seeing on campus?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, food insecurity, I guess like what it is in terms is the question of where my next meal is going to come from, when my next meal, or even if there's going to be a meal. You know, I think when coming from, you know, pre-college, a lot of students, like I was saying, who come in, you know, they had the support of the family for the most part, and I don't want to speak for all, but for most. You always had that, you know, you always went home and you can always kind of bank on the fact that there's going to be a meal for you there at the end of the day. And going to bed hungry wasn't really something that was a concern for me, at least. Again, I don't want to generalize, but for most. So coming into campus here, I mean, that becomes a question more and more often. And on the topic of food security, it goes back to that question of, if I'm going to have a meal in the next 2 hours, oh wait, I have a class from this time to this time, I have 30 minutes to eat, can I eat? Or, oh, I don't have any groceries, I don't have money to buy food. So then it's like, when do I eat, where do I eat? So yeah, it's these questions to me that's really kind of encapsulates what food insecurity is like. And this goes on to like such broader terms, and you know, it's a very broad area, but I guess in terms of an institutional level, yeah, students specifically, like I said, the perpetuation of the broke college student culture is kind of what brings you, and as you were saying before with your dad, you know, it's like the first time going to college, it's okay to be poor, but it's also like, there's a difference between being poor and versus like, you do not have proper access to what you need, like food, you know, like basic things you need. So yeah, that's just kind of what I see specifically when it comes to food insecurity on a college level. Yeah.
And then following up to that, can you talk to me about like the causes of food insecurity for students, and like why a student might have trouble getting food? You did talk a little bit about that, but
yeah,
more specifically.
So specifically with this, I mean, the UT specifically is structured very interestingly. A lot of the support and a lot of the resources go to students who live on campus and at the dorms. And the dorms, you know, you have your unlimited meal plan, you can go whenever you want. But one of the big issues that I see specifically is, you know, there's not really an acknowledgement that there is a whole broad area called West Campus next door, and that is a beast of a place. It is the second most populated area in Texas, and it being like, what, 30,000 students in 10 blocks, and also just kind of the basically industrialization of West Campus and seeing the development of these high-rise, high-end, luxury, whatever, apartments and buildings being built. You know, it just kind of sets it up to where it's like you can live here in the most convenient spots if you can afford it. And also just the way, like I was saying, like students don't have a proper and consistent form of transportation, and then that kind of leads to the question of, well, where do I get my groceries? And then there's public transportation, but the CAP Metro system also just kind of like, the system in itself does not set up in a way that makes it accessible for students. There's the 642 that goes into West Campus, that loops you around to San Jack, and then you have to hop off, take another connecting bus, then it gets you to the HEB, and that in itself, I asked a friend, took him around like an hour to even get there. It's an hour to get there, hour and a half to get groceries, and another hour back. That's like 3.5, 4 hours that students don't have. And what is expected of college students and kind of the pedigree that we have to meet, having and sparing that time just to simply get the bare necessities is, it's difficult. And, so it's on both levels. You see that there is a systematic issue, specifically within, like, even the city of Boston, but then there's also the institutional issue where it's like UT in itself as an entity has not done much to address that. And these conversations and these initiatives, the free fridge, Texas Rising, the shuttle, all this, it's coming up now, which is interesting to me because it's coming up. It's 2024, and this is kind of some of the first times that these conversations are being had. So I mean, yeah, it's just it's worrisome, and it's not good. So that's, hopefully I answered the question. Sorry, I sidetracked it, but
No,
hopefully that was.
Yeah, no, thank you.
May I add a little bit?
Absolutely.
On top of that?
Yes.
Because you talked about the industrialization of West Campus and the construction
of these high-rise apartments. And when you look at, as rents get higher in West Campus because of what's being built there is more high-end and luxury, that's going to constrain the incomes of our students who are already working, many of whom are already working minimum wage jobs. So they're going to have to decide between their rent payment and their next meal. So that's also another issue that's contributing to where West Campus is potentially contributing to the food insecurity as well. And that is contributing to the food insecurity.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And again, as you talking about the topic of industrialization of West Campus, and you see that it just keeps pushing students back further and further away from campus, and that's also it's impacting energy levels, it's impacting access. They say the closest grocery store is HEB on 41st, and it's like, or the barely a grocery store that's a Target on Guad.
Wheatsville, that's so
Wheatsville,
expensive.
that's so expensive, and also not to mention go ahead and carry 2 weeks, a month of groceries in your hands, So yeah, it's just
Okay, another group question for all of you guys before we move on to the next section of our panel. But I'll start with Maya for this question, and then Dad and Nicholas, you can take it on after that. From your work with food insecurity, can you speak to what it's like for UT students who struggle with food insecurity, like mental, physical health, financial, just kind of what is it like for them?
Well, number one, it's difficult to reach out whenever you're in a position, because also a lot of your peers are going through the same thing. It's hard to ask for help from people that also need help. The mental load, when you don't have your basic needs met, it's like everything else goes downhill as well. It's like your grades start falling, your extracurricular activities, you're not able to go to as many in-person meetings, you don't have the energy because you're not being fed, you're not having your basic needs taken care of. So that absolutely affects mental health. Also just the stress of what you were saying, having to decide between rent and food, having to decide, am I going to be missing a huge opportunity by allocating these 4 hours to go and get groceries? All of these things. Is it better to not be prioritizing these fun outlets where it's as a student, if you're really busy and you're not able to be going on things these more frivolous type things, these luxuries, concerts, going to these things, they are important as a college student, giving yourself a break, allowing yourself time to rest, and if you're, instead of doing those things, you're allocating that money to more expensive places like the Wheatsville Co-op grocery store. and saying, like, for convenience, I physically do not have time to go to these places, and you're instead going to more expensive places. You don't have that buffer. If you had a buffer at all initially, you don't have that anymore to spend it on taking care of yourself and just enjoying life as a college student, you know. And also just beyond UT students. I mean, I do a lot of distribution with Street Forum, and that's the greater Austin community. Food insecurity it affects everything. You know, all of these struggles are interconnected. You know, harm reduction, food insecurity, homelessness, you know, all of these things are completely intertwined. You know, they're all part of the same, like, systemic core issue where it's like people aren't valued. Their needs aren't valued, and that extends to students, of course, and in specific ways, because the UT specifically as like an institution has a great impact on that. But it's definitely indicative of a larger systemic problem of just not valuing people and their lives.
And it goes down to, honestly, a fundamental, like, it's like food is, on a physiological level, like, that's what you need to live, you know?
Absolutely. It shouldn't be considered a luxury.
Yeah, you know, food shouldn't be like, oh, you know, you live high end if you can afford to get groceries, you know? And it's also like, hell, it being like the second most endowed university in the U.S., I'm pretty sure, right? And we have the funds, and there is money for it, but where is this being allocated to? Not the students. And it's ironic to me because we use the term, and I say this a lot because I find it really funny, the term, what starts here changes the world, right? It's everywhere, you know, it's on buildings, it's on towers, it's on rings, it's everywhere. But, you know, reap what you sow, you know, they say like, oh, what starts to change the world, what starts here is the students, but you're not taking care of the students, so what's the point of you perpetuating that, right? So, yeah.
Nicholas, is there anything you want to add on to that about, you know, what it's like for students' experience?
I don't have anything else to add. I think they covered it pretty well.
Well, thank you all for that section of our panel. When we come back, we'll continue talking to our panel about food insecurity on campus. We'll take a closer look at the organizations our panelists are a part of and their efforts to help students, so stay tuned.
"13 of the 48 club sports offered by the university now require students to submit proof of sex assigned at birth."
I know deep down they would probably want to stay with the university.
No way in hell anybody's going to tell my daughters what to do with their bodies.
This state is one of the worst in child education.
We can't take it anymore seeing those scenes.
Going to Hillel on Friday night, all my family members like kept like texting me like not to go.
There's a huge housing crisis in Austin. Do you have a plan in place to address this issue? Determined to start your day well? We're up bright and early. From the enriching local stories to the weather forecast later in the day. Rain or shine, at Good Morning Longhorns, we got you covered. Comprised of a studious reporting staff going lengths to get that scoop, and a talented technical team to enhance your screen visually. As a fellow Longhorn, your mornings are better with us. So start your day the Vivo way. Good Morning Longhorns, Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central Time on TSTV.
Welcome back. For those of you just joining us, we are joined by Nicholas Basha from Texas Rising, Mayoel Crane with the ATX Free Fridge program, and Dat Duong from West Campus Collective and from Student Government's Food Security Agency. Thank you all for being here. In our next topic for tonight, we're going to talk more about some of the programs our panelists are a part of and how students can access food through those programs. So Maya, I'm going to start with you. You helped launch a free fridge in West Campus as part of the ATX Free Fridge program. Can you tell me about what the process was like of fundraising and installing that fridge, and how students can actually go about and get food from the fridge?
Okay. Well, bear with me. The beginning of the project started, oh gosh, what day is it? I think it's a little over a year exactly. That's not exactly, but a little over a year at this point. Maybe a year and a week when I started the project. To super summarize, because there probably wasn't a week where I wasn't working on some aspect of it. But summarized, a lot of the beginning, maybe like 3/5 of the project, was just trying to find a host location. There were a lot of things that needed to happen for it to qualify. It couldn't be on city property. There were a lot of locations that had two locations that technically they both owned, but they wouldn't own the alleyway between it. That would be owned by the city or things like that. It had to be someplace that was available 24/7, so it couldn't be anywhere inside. It had to be shaded from the sun. That way, to support the longevity of the fridge itself, because in this Texas heat, if it's directly getting the sun beat down on it, it's just going to make the fridge last a lot shorter than it would. So all of that beginning process was just going from location to location, interviewing with different places, and just seeing if anything stuck, seeing if there was any location that would meet all of the qualifications. Eventually, Pearl Street Co-op, all the people who lived within the co-op voted on agreeing to do it, or agreeing to host the fridge. Hosting a fridge, basically, all that means is that the fridge will be at that location, and that location will be paying for the electricity. They're not required any other commitment beyond that. Of course, if anyone within the location wants to help out, they're more than welcome to, but there's no expectation of that beyond paying for the electricity. There was a lot of bureaucratic meetings going from there, getting the specific committees to agree, getting college houses. Just a lot of people had to say yes for the location to be completely, everything checked off, everything, right? Just a lot of dotting I's, crossing T's, and a lot of meetings to do that. After that, in December, it was completely confirmed that the location was going to be Pearl Street Co-op. And then from that point, that's when fundraising began. Our fiscal sponsor at that point was Open Collective, and it was a fiscal sponsor, so you would be able to see exactly where your donations were going. It's similar to GoFundMe, except it's very transparent, and that whenever money is used, you're able to see oh, this X amount was used to pay for the fridge, that type of thing. And then from there, they ended up, they had some process things going on their end, and the last day to accept donations ended up being in March. So we had a month, essentially, to fundraise for the project, which was terrifying. But after that, there was a lot of just networking, honestly, a lot of just reaching out and begging, please, 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 you really want to give me money for this. But that in practice looked like making a lot of phone calls, sending a lot of emails, sending out to all of the advisors, hey, could you please put this in your next newsletter, calling churches, seeing if they would be doing collections for it, just pretty much any resource that could be tapped, I try to tap it. And we ended up reaching the goal 8 days early, which was absolutely insane to me, because I truly did not think that we were going to make the goal because we had such a short amount of time. I was expecting, when we announced the fundraiser, I was thinking that we would build it in May, and we ended up start building in May, and so I wanted to have all the donations in by then. So obviously, it got pushed up a lot. So I was very worried that it wouldn't come together. But the community came through, you know, like over a week early, like in 3 weeks essentially, $4,000 was raised, and then after that another $1,500 was raised after that in additional donations. So it was absolutely insane. And then from there was a lot of the whole labor process of actually putting the fridge together. That was done by one of the core members of ATX Free Fridge. Her mom did so much of that work. She is so wonderful and amazing. So much love and appreciation to her. And there was a group of volunteers, and we basically, you know, knocked it out in a day, the building of it, and then the next week, me and a few other people spent the time like painting the fridge, priming it, like doing all that, getting the fridge in, ordering it, getting all that out of the way, to opening. So all of that process was very, very short. Like the fundraising closed March 15th, and then the opening party was April 6th, and it had actually opened a week prior. So all of that, like, making of the fridge itself and the shed, because it's not just a fridge, it's also a closet and a pantry, all came together in about 2 weeks. I'm so sorry, that was a very long answer. What was the second part of the question?
Can you just like briefly explain how students can get food from there? They just like walk up to the fridge, open
Absolutely no restriction at all. You just go behind Pearl Street Co-op. There should be some signs directing, or there are some signs directing students to the physical place, but basically it's this bright pink shed, and there's no limit, there's no anything, no restriction, just you know, leave what you can, take what nourishes you.
Dad, I'll come to you now. Last month, the Food Security Agency with student government launched the grocery shuttle program, where students can take a shuttle to a grocery store on the weekends. Yeah. Can you explain how that system works and what it was like to get that program?
Yeah. Well, I first just want to start off too. Like, it's a board. We have a board. The Food Security Agency. We're an agency, so we have a board of people. Shout everyone out. Erica Howard Cormier, she's a master's student in public affairs program here at UT. She's my co-director. She is a powerhouse. I just want to get this all clear out of the way first. Just, like, she's amazing, and honestly, like, a huge driving force in all this too. Mercy, Michael, who are data and research people, Carmen, Shyla, communications, Anika, Annika, they are community outreach people. Yeah, whole board of people behind this, and a bunch of going to meetings and stuff, but just wanted to put that out there. But yeah, I'm only one person on this panel right now, but there is a team behind all of this, so yeah. But to answer your question, what was it? Sorry, got on a tangent.
The grocery shuttle program, yes. How did that
Yeah. So I just for some context too, is the Food Security Agency, our predecessors were the Food Insecurity Action Team, which was started by a group of students here at UT prior who's graduated. I know 2 of them. I don't know the full group, but I know Krisha, Ria, Ryan, yeah, there's a handful of people. I don't remember all of them, but those are the 3 that I know. But yeah, they kind of spearheaded that whole idea, and then they pitched the idea of a grocery shuttle to PSAC, the Presidential Student Advisory Committee. There we go. And from then too, I think they were just kind of juggling the fact that, they're almost graduating and there's a lot of things left unfinished. So in partnership with student government in last administration, so Leyland and Isabel's administration, was when the converting of the Food Insecurity Action Team was brought into the Food Insecurity Action Agency. And then from then, that's where we stepped in. And that's when me and Erica we were appointed co-directors around November, October. And from then was when we really we kind of had like a set, like, here's kind of what's happening, here's the context of everything. Good luck, basically. So it was work. I mean, it was going through a lot of meetings. We also had to put together a board in that semester. So, and then we renamed the agency to the Food Security Agency, and we're here now. So basically, the process of getting that is it was in partnership, or it is in partnership, with Parking and Transportation Services. And so it was a lot of, meeting with them, working out what the logistics of this shuttle is going to look like, because on their end, it's also like, okay, how is this going to function? Like, and how can it function in the most effective way? So it took a lot of meetings between not only the agency and them, but also within the agency as well, just kind of discussing how we're going to approach this. So we all met, we made a new proposal and everything with new logistics, and from then we met with them a couple more times just to kind of like further fix and alter and, you know, revise the shuttle program a bit. And then officially, everything got checked off, you know, vans and everything got checked off. And I would want to say, I don't know the exact day, I really should know this, but it was sometime in March, in the beginning of March, mid-March. Around that time was when the shuttle officially launched and we had the first group of students come in there. We're also implementing an exit survey for the students who take the shuttle just to further inform what the experience is like, how it can be, you know, basically just using that data to kind of further prove the point, like, hey, there is a need for this. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, that's when the shuttle first officially launched, and now it's up and running officially through Parking and Transportation Services. You can find it on their website, new form and everything and all. But basically how it works as well, I think that's the second part of the question, right? Yeah, so basically how it works is you sign up, so there's like the Qualtrics form has a list of all the Saturdays and Sundays for the rest of the semester. You choose one, you pick a pickup time and a location, and yeah, I mean, and that's it. And I mean, there's some other stuff I canceled with this time, but there's more information about that on the website. I'm pretty sure it was canceled by midnight, the night before your ride. And that day, PTS, the SureWalk vehicles come to pick you up. We are ADA accessible, so if you need ADA accommodations, we have them for you. And then they take you to the grocery store. It's in a group, and then you shop and they take you back and to your apartment specifically. That's an important part, because, you know, I thought of it like being like pick up from, there was some, you know, bureaucratic stuff about how the university wants to play about, like, oh, can they pick off or drop off campus, etc. But there was workarounds behind that, and figured out a way to pick students up from the university, because that's like the one thing, like, they have to be picked up from the university. Pick up from the university, drop them off at the grocery store, and take them back home. So that's kind of like the main point there, is getting them home, just to narrow that burden of, like, you know, using your arms as as like a shopping cart. So yeah, that's just kind of what I can pull off the moment. I'm pretty sure I'm missing something, but yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Thank you. And Nicholas, kind of a two-parter for you. You mentioned that addressing food insecurity is kind of a newer initiative at Texas Rising. So I'm interested to know how that fits into the group mission and how that kind of came about. And the second part is, you guys are working to secure an affordable grocery store in West Campus. If you can tell me more about that and what that process has been like.
Yeah, so with Texas Rising, with a lot of our issues are centered around young people, and we have a lot of, at least our Texas Rising chapters have a lot of free range to organize around kind of progressive issues that our student population really cares about, and food insecurity is, as we've kind of explained, is a big issue here at UT. So we felt that kind of fits into our purview, and plus it just intersects with so many other issues, like, because as we've mentioned with some of the other stuff and kind of going into the background on food insecurity, it affects mental health, it affects our ability to learn and education. Often food insecurity is tied in with, is often kind of had links to kind of racism as well, with in terms of where grocery stores are located and who gets served, who's able to get, which areas are food deserts and which are not. So because of all those intersections that food security has, it kind of really ties into the purview of a lot of the social issues that we've kind of traditionally covered in the past. In terms of bringing an affordable grocery store, so another branch of kind of Texas Rising is we do a lot of civic engagement, registering students to vote, getting them out to the polls to vote. So through that, we've kind of, through our civic engagement, we also do endorsements as well. One of the candidates that we've worked with was our the District 9 Austin City Council member, Zoe Kadri. And it's through our kind of endorsement, or I don't know if we technically endorsed him actually, but in working with kind of Zoe Kadri's campaign, we really liked his platform because he was very student-centered in his issues, and recognized that in a district where we have downtown Austin and South Congress and Hyde Park, that students actually make up 50% of District 9. Yet, in that past district members have really kind of looked over our vote, just because we're a lot of us are very, you could say temporary, but I would also argue that we're also kind of a constant in the community too, even though we kind of rotate year in and year out. There's always going to be a student population in District 9. So in working with him, and when he got elected and on his kind of student-centered platform, we're now working with his office to see if there are what issues we may run into in terms of bringing affordable grocery, or bringing like an HEB or a Fiesta to West Campus, and whether that's a zoning issue, or see what we're kind of working with him to see whether that exists, and how can and what work can they do in terms of making changes to the university neighborhood overlay in terms of helping bring affordable grocery to West Campus. So we're in the process of starting those conversations with City Council, and we're just really trying to kind of plant that seed first, since it is a pretty ambitious. We admit it's a very ambitious kind of project to take on, especially with our group being pretty new. But we feel it's important having a student-centered voice inside our city council. I think it's important that in the fact that our organization has that connection, we feel it's very important that we leverage that and be able to use that for a big issue here at UT.
And then Dad, I'll come back to you. We are running a little bit low on time in this section of our panel, so just briefly, can you tell me about the West Campus Collective? They primarily distribute free meals to students, I believe, and can you walk me through like what all they do?
Yeah. Of course. Again, I'm only one man here. There's another person, Catherine Espina, who is not here, but I wish she was. But if Catherine, if you're watching this, hi. But so basically, Catherine's kind of with having the research that she has and looking at, income breakups of West Campus and kind of seeing the issue there, and kind of like also with the free fridge as well. Catherine was telling me like she was really inspired by like the mutual aid structure of ATX free fridge. So from then there was a lot of workings behind it. But starting last semester was when we really decided to pick the ball and get the ball rolling with everything. So we had one partner at that time, and we partnered with them, and they had their Friday dinners for their students, and we would go, collect the food, and we'd go to the streets of West Campus and just give it out for free. Of course, there's some logistical stuffs, but so basically that's what we did for the majority of last semester, and there were some other partners here and there, but nothing super concrete. And another goal of ours was to reach out and get in contact, and started having Greek Life as one of our partners. That found to be certain challenges behind that and some pushback, but we were able to push through, and this semester we were able to get our first Greek Life partner, and we've grown so much. I mean, we went from one partner start of last semester, so fall 23, into I want to say 5, 6 now, and we're still growing. We have one practically every day. Multiple a day as well, and yeah, we just go in, we collect it, and we go out to those specific locations that we saw that were the most problematic when it comes to that, and then we just give out the food for free. And we've also given a lot of food also to the West Campus free fridge as well, which is amazing club, by the way. So so that was just kind of, and we're still growing, and we're still looking into the longevity of everything. There's still a whole nother semester, or many of semesters. I have one last year here, so there's going to be a lot of working around stuff, but I'm super excited for it. Like I'm excited to see where it goes, how it grows. And yeah, that's the West Campus Collective, and also again, flowers to Catherine Espina as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move into the fourth section of our panel now. So we're going to talk about food waste, as well as the challenges that food insecurity organizations face and the different approaches they are taking on campus. Dad, I want to start with you. In this conversation about food insecurity, it's kind of interesting, but there's also food waste. Food getting wasted is another topic. Can you talk to me, can you speak to what it's like at UT with their food distribution and food waste practices?
I'm going to steal a little anecdote from Catherine here. I remember her telling me this and kind of being like, oh yeah, that's so true. Being in the dorms and being in the meal plan and going to the many of dining halls that they have, you walk through and you get your food and it's whatever, but you kind of think later on, like, wait, that's a lot of food. This thing isn't open 24/7. Like, that food has to go somewhere, and the dining hall's closed. So where does that food go? So that kind of pops in the question of like, oh, what do they do with the food? And so that's kind of what sparked the thought of like, oh, food waste specifically. And through conversations with UHD, I know they have certain programs out there that they can use. They said they sometimes compost, they sometimes donate, and they sometimes do this. And keyword there is sometimes. So basically there just wasn't, what I kind of got from that was there wasn't really an adequate system in place to tackle or mitigate the food waste that was happening. So then that was just kind of like the first like large scale, like on an institutional level, this is what food waste looks like, and no one's really talking about it. But then also we think about on the broader scope of student organizations, Greek life. I mean, Greek life is huge, and they have their own food supply, and there's who knows the amount of food waste that happens there. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of like where we saw the issue, and then through actually in practice of looking at food waste and reallocating those food wastes to students who need them, that's when my eyes kind of really got open, because like in the first semester, we were able to distribute 350 meals, and that's only from one organization that has one dinner every Friday. So maybe that was like 6-7 weeks that we were doing that, and that's 350 meals. Now we're almost at 800 at the end of this semester, and that's with 4 or 5 food partners. And it's just puts into context like how much is actually being thrown away and how much it is being. How much of it, and it's interesting too, because in practice and doing these distributions, the food goes relatively quick. Like, students come, they grab it, and they go, oh, free food, right? And so it's like there is kind of like students love free food, right. And that's always right. Yeah. Students love free food, and so yeah, it's just fascinating the interplay between them two of just seeing how much is going to the trash and how much of that could be repurposed and how much of that could be brought back to the students who need it. So yeah, that's what I've seen at least with food waste.
Switching gears a little bit, so each of your groups have chosen very specific different tactics to address food insecurity. There's like the free fridge concept, the transportation to the grocery store, there is securing a new grocery store in West Campus that Texas Rising is attempting to do. I'm curious to know why, if you can speak to like why your groups have chosen those specific methods. Nicholas, if we can start with you.
Yeah, I think when I was kind of introducing our approach, obviously a lot of the mutual aid work is very important in the short term in solving student food insecurity and making, or I guess not solving, but mitigating student food insecurity, because a lot of that is problems that are very real right now. It's like we can't wait for a grocery store to just come here to get a meal. We need people need food right away. So in our ideas, if we can have that kind of short term, that's kind of our a lot of that mutual aid is very short term. The reason we kind of landed on starting conversations around affordable grocery in West Campus is looking towards bringing that long-term solution to student food insecurity. So that's why we wanted to kind of focus specifically on that outlet of in terms of our advocacy.
It's kind of interesting how I got into it because I'm not one of the core members of ATX Free Fridge, but I am the primary organizer for the West Campus Free Fridge specifically. And I started that project before I reached out to ATX Free Fridge because I wanted to finalize as much of the details as possible before going to them. I didn't want them to have to divert any labor or energy into something that wasn't a sure thing. I wanted to make sure that I had as much of those details worked out before I approached them with it. So a lot of it was me and community support, not necessarily an organization or a collective. So with that, or absolutely a collective, but not as an organizing body type of thing. So with that, the whole idea for it began, like using that approach was because I just knew people who used the other ATX Free Fridges. And I remember just kind of thinking, like, I can't do that because I don't have the time to go on a bus to deliver that food. I don't have that much excess food anyway. And I don't have a car, you know. And just kind of thinking about that, I also realized that there are all these, you know, all these restaurants on Guad, and a lot of students work at those restaurants on Guad, and I know so many of them would be like complaining at the end of their shift, like, why do I have to throw all this food away, you know? And then I started thinking about it even more, and it's like, of the students, like 1 in 3 students are food insecure, but of the ones that aren't, a lot of those people have access to kitchens, but not cars. So how do we get that access to those people, the people who need those resources, you know? And to me, like, I was understanding all of those things kind of simultaneously, so it wasn't that I was comparing, like, oh, which solution would be best in this moment. It was that I know this type of resource exists outside of the West Campus community, and I wanted to see if it was possible to do in West Campus itself, to see if I could bring that kind of resource here, and to collaborate with ATX Free Fridge because I have looked up to them and, like, think that they are just the coolest people on earth. So a lot of that, definitely a kind of different route with that because I became close with ATX Free Fridge and their core organizers through this project, not necessarily before. Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, I guess with West Campus Collective and the Food Security Agency, it's interesting. Both of them tackle, you know, the two different sides of this. There's like the systemic issues and mitigating that, and versus like boots on the ground work, which I love as well. So I guess with West Campus Collective, again, that was spearheaded by Catherine, and really last semester is when I was tasked with the duty to bring it up and kind of, you know, get the ball rolling and everything. So yeah, what was the question again? I'm so sorry. Like, I'm like trying to.
It was like, no, it's okay. It's about, like, you've chosen this specific method or these specific initiatives, and why. Tell me a bit about, like,
yeah, with West Campus Collective, I mean, I think Catherine can speak more on this, but I guess, like, in addressing both food waste and food insecurity, looking at it within the scope of, like, how can this be transferred into actual practice, this was kind of the means to where we saw it most effective and most efficient, and a lot of organizations found they were very open to the idea. And there are some organizations, you know, that have issues with, like, liability stuff, like, oh, if someone gets, you know, etc. But, you know, working around that and finding those organizations that care for the mission, we were able to find a network of organizations out there and people who really care about the mission. And from there was really when we snowballed West Campus Collective to what it is now. So that's kind of where that comes from. And for the Food Security Agency, like I said, we did have predecessors, the Food Insecurity Action Team. They were they were the ones who really set the foundation, the blueprint, like everything for this agency, and we basically are just going off of that. So the State of Food Insecurity report, there was one made in 2021. Obviously there's some buffer time. It's supposed to be a biannual report, but there was some buffer time because there needed to be some transfer between them and an agency. So now it's just like, I think if anything, going to higher up administration on like a huge institutional level, going to businesses, organizations, whatever, and trying to advocate for food security in whatever sense. They love numbers, you know, so both quantitative with like the recent food report finding 1 in 3 students at UT are food insecure, and using those statistics and kind of seeing how that evolves over time, and also how that evolves over time in the context of these specific initiatives being enacted, really shows a lot of power within not only the projects and the advocacy projects that are going on, but also just the scale of what food insecurity looks like for students here. So yeah, it's a task that it's a big task, but it's also so important. So that just involves like getting data, student anecdotes, and then kind of analyzing that data and going, what can we do about this? What are actionable items that we can implement on an institutional level that can aid in these students' thoughts, or these students' problems when it comes to food security? So this breaks it down, whether it be from income, gender, also just some other loose-ended questions. There's a lot to it. But yeah, we're working on that now. The actual interest groups and surveying will start next semester. So, and after that's when really the construction of the report starts. So yeah, and then this whole process too, it is going through the IRB, which will give it the accreditation for it to be cited and, you know, for it to be used in a much larger context, away from just institutional, also just in the city of Austin, international, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Like, again, we are just one university. There are a lot of, there's a bunch of universities around, and, you know, we have ACC, we have St. Ed's, we have Houston Thank you. Tilton. So, we're just one institution, and I'd be silly to say that if this was the only institution that goes through food insecurity. So this just sets up the grounds for something a lot bigger. So yeah, that's kind of the inspiration behind that. So, and here we are now.
Nice. A very kind of hopeful way to end out the panel tonight, because we are now finished. We're at the end of our hour. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight, and the viewers, and sharing your insights on food insecurity and the programs that y'all are a part of. When we come back, a sit down with UT Outpost's Valeria Martin, Assistant Director for Basic Needs. Stay tuned.
Thirteen of the 48 club sports offered by the university now require students to submit proof of sex assigned at birth.
I know deep down they would probably want to stay with the university.
No way in hell anybody's going to tell my daughters what to do with their bodies.
This state is one of the worst in child education.
We can't take it anymore, seeing those scenes.
Going to Hillel on Friday night, all my family members kept texting me not to go.
There's a huge housing crisis in Austin. Do you have a plan in place to address this issue? Determined to start your day well? We're up bright and early. From the enriching local stories to the weather forecast later in the day. Rain or shine, at Good Morning Longhorns, we got you covered. Comprised of a studious reporting staff going lengths to get that scoop, and a talented technical team to enhance your screen visually. As a fellow Longhorn, your mornings are better with us. So start your day the Vivo way. Good Morning Longhorns, Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central Time on TSTV.
13 of the 48 club sports offered by the university now require students to submit proof of sex assigned at birth.
I know deep down they would probably want to stay with the university.
No way in hell anybody's going to tell my daughters what to do with their bodies.
This state is one of the worst in child education.
We can't take it anymore seeing those scenes.
Going to Hillel on Friday night, all my family members kept texting me not to go.
There's a huge housing crisis in Austin. Do you have a plan in place to address this issue? Determined to start your day well? We're up bright and early. From the enriching local stories to the weather forecast later in the day. Rain or shine, at Good Morning Longhorns, we got you covered. Comprised of a studious reporting staff going lengths to get that scoop, and a talented technical team to enhance your screen visually. As a fellow Longhorn, your mornings are better with us. So start your day the Vivo way. Good Morning Longhorns, Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central Time on TSTV.
Thirteen of the 48 club sports offered by the university now require students to submit proof of sex assigned at birth.
I know deep down they would probably want to stay with the university.
No way in hell anybody's going to tell my daughters what to do with their bodies.
This state is one of the worst in child education.
We can't take it anymore seeing those scenes.
Going to Hillel on Friday night, all my family members kept texting me not to go.
There's a huge housing crisis in Austin. Do you have a plan in place to address this issue? Determined to start your day well? We're up bright and early. From the enriching local stories to the weather forecast later in the day. Rain or shine, at Good Morning Longhorns, we got you covered. Comprised of a studious reporting staff going lengths to get that scoop, and a talented technical team to enhance your screen visually. As a fellow Longhorn, your mornings are better with us. So start your day the Vivo way. Good Morning Longhorns, Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central Time on TSTV.
Welcome back to Tower Talks. Last week, reporter Ariba Barmel sat down with Valeria Martin, the Assistant Director for Basic Needs, to talk about the UT Outpost. They spoke about the need for a resource like the Outpost on campus, future plans for the Outpost, and the Outpost's collaboration with other campus organizations.
Food insecurity and financial hardship do impact a lot of students on our campus. For food insecurity specifically, University Health Services conducts a survey every 2 years. It's the National College Health Assessment, and in it they do ask questions about food insecurity. And so the latest data that we got from the 2023 survey indicated that about 43.7% of students reported experiencing food insecurity at some point in the last 30 days of them taking that survey. And so, and that actually grew from what it was in 2021. And so that does tell us that there are students that need our assistance, and I think that's why it's important to have a resource like this that is accessible for students, that they're able to come in between crazy schedules and when transportation is a difficulty for them. And so overall, I think it's helpful in that way with the food pantry side. And then the professional clothing. Professional clothing is expensive and can be hard to access for folks, and sometimes that is one of the things that you need to get your foot in the door for certain careers or jobs. And so we want to help our students be able to break down that barrier so that they can stop worrying about the professional clothing and just worry about being a really good candidate for whatever they're applying for or doing. And so I think this is just important in that way, that it helps meet basic needs and also prepare students for what's coming next. One of the things that we're really excited about that we've been working on are what we're kind of currently just calling emergency food bags. So we've seen how weather events have happened and impacted our communities here in Texas over the last several years. And when things like winter storms have happened or things like that, we've had to close outposts because sometimes it's not safe for even our staff to come to campus. But we know that during those times is also when people might need us. And so we've been trying to think of ways to better serve students when things like that happen. And so one of my students, one of our student board members, has been researching what are essential items that people should have in their pantry when an emergency happens. And so we're going to use that to create a list of items and make pre-made bags for emergencies. And then we'll hopefully be able to partner with campus organizations to put them in their spaces to give out when needed. One of our first campus partners that we have been chatting about it with are our friends in CMHC and like Longhorn Wellness and UHS. They often see students that maybe are just themselves going through a hard time and maybe do need an emergency bag. So while not related to like a weather emergency, it's still an emergency nonetheless. And so we've been thinking about trying to prepare some bags for them, probably sometime around this summer, to start having them be able to provide those. And so as that kind of serves as our pilot and how it works, we can kind of expand it as we go into next year. We work with our friends in University Housing and Dining with UT Farm Stand. So they have the campus gardens and then the market that they host every couple weeks. Whatever's left over from the market comes to us here at Outpost. We actually currently have some broccoli and like lettuce in the fridge from them. And we actually expanded that partnership. Actually, one of our recent expansions was getting some grant funds from the city of Austin to purchase hydroponic towers that would just be for UT Outpost with the farm stand garden. Because they already had hydroponic towers, obviously, as I mentioned, they use them to grow vegetables, fruits and vegetables, sell them, and then it comes to us. But these two new ones are just for us. So those won't be sold at the market.
Be sure to follow us on social media at TSTV Tower Talks on X, formerly Twitter, and at Tower Talks TSTV on Instagram. From all of us here in the studio, thank you for joining us this evening, and good night.